Hello, podcast listener. You're listening to JJ Meets World, which is not affiliated with Dare, but man, we talk about it a lot today. The Pepsi and Coke rivalry. We're going to talk a little Valentine's Day, and I'll even bring one of my shamiest moments of my life. So much more happening on this episode of JJ Meets World. And by the way, if you'd like to help support our podcast, visit jjmeetsworld.com where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some killer swag at our merch shop, or click the link to Apple Podcast and give us a 5-star review.
1, 2, 3, 4. J.J. Gordon, sort of like that Indiana Jones in that he's always sniffing out his next adventure. Yes, he is. He's always interviewing guests so he can have them on his show and they can talk about pop culture, arts, and leisure. J.J. has his flag unfurled and he likes his french fries curled and he's fun and then he twirls as he goes to meet the world. He will march into the rain even if his ankle sprained. Take a peek inside his brain. This podcast is called J.J. Meets World.
Who won Valentine's Day?
Who won Valentine's Day?
Yeah,
Me.
who won? You
100%.
I figured you were going to. I think we spoke about this previously.
We did. In fact, some people have come up to me and said, how could you tell everyone what Jill's Valentine's Day gift was? And I said, because none of you talk to my wife, and I know she will never listen to this. In fact, I told her specifically that in the latest episode of JJ Meets World, I told everyone what your Valentine's Day gift is. And she goes, that's smart because I will never hear it. So it was good. I definitely won Valentine's Day. She did have a good showing, though.
Okay.
I will say for that.
Okay.
So I'm not entirely, I didn't blow it out of the water, but I definitely blew it off the beach.
Well, I mean, I would say you don't want to do better than your anniversary, Christmas, or birthday.
Yeah.
It needs to rank a little bit underneath that, just because then it's not as it needs to have a little less urgency.
Agreed.
And so that you can also maybe not spend as much, and also just lower the bar a bit so that you're not going to get in trouble. You're born in April. Yes.
So what was 9 months before April? You ever think about that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like,
I don't
what
want to do
was
the math.
happening? Like, so here's an interesting fact about me. I was 30 days late, like a month late. So I was cooking for 10 months as a baby. And only because of cesarean section did I come out. I was supposed to be born in September, ended up being born in October. My sister, supposed to be born in August, ended up being born in September.
You were from your mother's womb, untimely ripped.
Right, correct. So like I can be the king of Denmark then, I think is the Dane of Denmark.
Yeah.
So I just dropped that on someone the other day and they went, okay. And I was like, you uncultured swine. I was like, well, I was born cesarean, so of course that means I could be the Dane of Denmark. And they're like, okay, whatever. And I was like, just give me my burger.
I bet that plays real well on KFGO.
It really
All those
does.
Shakespeare drops.
Shakespearean references are just what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm.
But so no, because I was thinking about this. So like, okay, so if I'm due mid-September, that's mid-January then, right? So Jill and I would like to start a family. And I constantly think of like, okay, what's gonna happen 9 months from now? And I made a huge mistake when I got married. Not because I got married, but because my birthday's mid-October, and then at the end of October, we've got our wedding anniversary, and then Jill's birthday is mid-November, and then it's Christmas. And so it's nonstop gifting all in one chunk versus spreading it out and making it a little easier. So, for example, at the time of this recording, mid-February, well, do I want to risk having Jill's birthday and then my baby's birthday that week, the same week?
Right.
That'd be ridiculous.
Right.
And I feel bad for the Christmas babies of the world because they're always like, hey, happy birthday and Merry Christmas. It's like, oh, come on.
Happy birthday to me and Jesus.
And to Jesus. Oh, my gosh, Tucker. I had to preach today. So, and by had to, I mean, I was paid a tidy sum to go up and share thoughts on religion, right?
Got it.
I can't believe that this is something that I have stumbled into as like a side gig because I love it. I have a great time prepping and putting this together. I approach it the same way I approach like character study when I'm working on a play, because it's like, okay, what's the message?
Right.
What's the thing I want to get out there today? And I remember my first one was about how a church isn't four walls. A church is a community of people who should be doing things in the name of love and to better the place that they are around, right? And so today, the pianist from the church is ill. So I had to DJ my sermon as well. And here's the thing. I thought, okay, so I've got a couple of hymns that I really like that are my go-to that I like to sing them, and I don't, as you know, I don't have a very good singing voice. And so this is something that like brings me joy to be able to get through some of the hymns, because the hymns are really set up for me. And so today I chose one that I fell in love with from the True Grit soundtrack when the Coen brothers remade it. It's called Leaning on the Everlasting Arms. And if you ever get a chance, it's the last track, I believe, on the album. And it's the single. It's like like a fiddle in the background, and then a single woman going leaning, leaning, leaning on the everlasting arms. And I love that one. And so today I found a really good kind of like guitar and fiddle background to it. And here's the problem with DJing your own hymns. I didn't want them to just be like someone playing piano. There's plenty of that on YouTube where you can get like an accompaniment, but I wanted to like dig deep into some of these things and play some music that isn't in a different style.
You wanted to bring some culture to church.
Right. Bring me to church. I don't know, remember what the rest of that song is. So the one I was bold. I opened with Amazing Grace, which is traditionally, a song for funerals. But I think that depending on the stank you throw into that one, it can be good for so many different occasions. For example, I love the movie Maverick, Richard Donner's Maverick from the mid-90s. I won't tell you who stars in it because they've been sort of canceled.
That's protect yourself by not mentioning his name.
Yeah. But Jodie Foster's in it and she's great. And anyway.
Call him Mel G.
Mel G. No, that's too obvious. Let's call him M. Gibson. So in it, there's a rousing version at the end where they did sort of like a We Are the World, where they got together all of the hot country stars of the time, and they had them sing this version of Amazing Grace that's very, We Are the World,
No, no, I remember. You're saying this is in the movie Maverick?
It plays over the end credits of it.
Okay.
And
I was like, I don't remember this scene.
They filmed them singing this as a choir, as well as because if you remember in the movie Maverick, both he and what we find out, spoiler alert, his father sing the wrong words to Amazing Grace. That's one of the reasons Jodie Foster is able to tell that they're father and son. And so they do this rousing version at the end of it, and it's great. Like Reba McEntire has a great part in it. And so it's one of those music videos where they cut in scenes from the movie that make no sense in the context. And then they cut back to like, Amazing Grace, how sweet the sound. And I love it. And I thought, okay, if I'm going to do Amazing Grace, I don't want to do one that is a bummer version, right?
Sure.
So I looked and I looked and I looked and I searched like Amazing Grace Bluegrass, thinking that maybe there's a bluegrass cover. And there's one that was really good, but it was a father and son, and the son clearly hadn't really refined his skills. I'm like, nope, I can't use this one. Gall darn it. I searched Amazing Grace Jazz. Horrible idea. There's no way you can sing along to it because they had a lot of tweet up.
Jazz isn't really like rousing music.
No.
It's like something to drink coffee to in a way that sucks.
Right. It's something where you go like, is that Amazing Grace? But you can't really put your finger on whether it is or not because it's so odd.
The notes in Amazing Grace are in this composition somewhere.
Right.
But they're hidden beneath all this other...
Yeah, I'm going to cross my fingers because that reminds me, I want to talk to you about a meme I saw this week. It's really important. So I was really down, and I had spent probably 2.5 hours searching Spotify, searching iTunes, searching YouTube. I even like did a sample of karaoke CDs, and I finally found it when I Googled best covers of Amazing Grace. You know who does an awesome cover of Amazing Grace? The king himself, Elvis Presley.
Oh, that would make sense. Yeah.
Right? And so I downloaded the Elvis Presley karaoke version of it. And what's great is the first time you go through, like, it's in 4 stanzas, I think, or 4, rounds, or whatever you call it. So the first round is just this kind of like soulful, like electric guitar. And then the next time it adds like this kind of organy thing, and it gets bigger each time, so that by the time you get like, we've been here 10,000 years, it is so dang good, and it's so rousing. Now, I would like to throw my wife Jill under the bus. I was DJing, but her job was to produce. So I had her over by the slider, because here's the thing. I was playing everything off my phone from the pulpit. We installed a Bluetooth transmitter not too long ago so that you can control everything. No sweat. Problem is, I'm a very popular dude.
Yeah,
right?
you got your phone up to your ear a lot.
Right, and I'm constantly getting emails and text messages and phone calls, DMs.
Mm-hmm.
And so my worry is that if I just turn that slider up on the soundboard and have it hooked up to my phone, at one point you're gonna hear, you're gonna hear, if I could turn back time when my sister calls, right? And no one wants to hear me in the middle of a speech and they'll, if I could turn back time. So I told Jill, I'm like, you bring the slider down, but here's the thing. You need to bring this up because the songs are of different quality. Even though I put them through Adobe and I changed some levels so that they were close, it's just different, right? They were recorded in different methods, blah, 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 blah. And so every time, and I knew it. I knew that her thing was like, listen, I don't want to blow these people out of the water. So even though JJ says to take it up to a 3, I'm going to leave it at a -6 decibel. So we get to Amazing Grace, and she looks up at me, and I give the thumbs up and with the pump, right? Like, so I'm pumping my thumb up, and she looks back at me and she gives me the thumbs up, and I'm like, no. And then I made a look like I'm turning to make it louder.
But to her, you're turning it to the left from the point of view that you just did to me.
Yes.
She was, turn it down. It's too loud.
And so each time something started playing, I was like, you need to punch this up. And here's the reason why. You're following the song, right? In Amazing Grace, to me, notes don't make any sense on the paper, but I know that when it gets to, like, Grace appeared the hour I once believed.
And where is she sitting? Is she like at the back of everything?
The very far back.
Yeah, that's a big problem. So you can't actually hear what it actually sounds like.
And the speakers are all on the side, and it's an in-house system.
Yep.
And so every time, and so finally I was like, I'm going to text her, right? And so... But I'm also up at this pulpit all by myself. And so I was like, how am I going to do this without anyone noticing? And clearly she never got the text, because like, if you had made it louder, and that's the problem, is we got lost in this. Another one that I like to play is called In the Garden. And like, it's got a very and so you can follow along where the words are just by like, he walks with me and he talks with me. It's like the Alfred Hitchcock theme now that I'm singing it out loud.
I'm picturing like a little ping pong ball bouncing from word to word, and the farmer, like, and the hands are coming up, and this one and this one.
So I guess, yeah. I mean, he's not. There's no mention of vegetables, but there are roses that dew on the roses. There are birds that stop their singing because it's so pure. But it was one of those where I was like, "Come on, Jill, just turn it up." And then I thought I could, because of the Bluetooth connection, I could turn it up on my phone. But the problem is, this is a note to people out there if you've never done any kind of sound. When you turn your phone all the way up on some Bluetooth devices, if it's going through a soundboard like this, you are sending the most powerful signal you can, which instantly becomes distorted. So you should actually bring your volume on your device to about a medium level, and then let the sound system do its job by pushing it up on the sliders, right? So I was like, well, I don't want to blow this thing out because I work so hard to find an organ version of this and the Elvis version of this. And it was very, very frustrating. And so at the end of the day, Jill and I were leaving and she goes, well, how'd it go? And I'm like, I'll be honest, I did not feel it today. I just didn't feel it. And I think that happens to people from time to time where I put effort into it, but maybe the effort should have been arrive an hour early because I'm going to be doing something I've never done before.
That's the risk reward. But also,
is.
I mean, just as an AV person, I could absolutely tell you that the more time you can spend being neurotic in your preparation,
right,
the way better it's going to be. And just never assume this will all work out fine. I got it. Right. It's like, no, you do got it, but it's probably going to take you an hour at least to get through everything. The nice thing is that at least in your situation, so many tasks are being repeated that you could potentially at a minimum come up with like on a slider, mark out like this is when music is up. This is where it's at medium or down. And then when you're mastering it in Audition, running it through a filter so that the loudness is always the same, because that's really what you're talking about is the loudness metric, which you can measure, and then that way okay, I've tried to dummy proof this as much as possible. Things are still going to go wrong, because they go wrong.
And here's the thing. So I did that, right. So I made sure that it was all coming in at the same level on Adobe. The problem is that, you're talking about different things like a guitar and a fiddle have a different resonance quality than someone playing a keyboard.
Yeah.
And
the loudness metric is actually different than the decibel metric. So that's one thing that we do with our podcast is that even though our decibel reading when I'm mastering it, usually I cap it out at -6 on the decibel meter, but that itself doesn't really tell you everything you need to know. There's a totally separate metric called loudness, which can be measured in all sorts of different units, and you use kind of a loudness meter too. And so it's a pass you do when you're trying to master audio where you go, okay, these are the ranges up here that I can that I want to know if it's loud, and these are the ranges where I want the quiet stuff to be. And then you play through those and see if they map into those areas or not. And then there sort of used to be loudness standards for radio and podcast, and there still are, but people don't quite adhere to them. So that's kind of the thing is like you could have two different pieces of music with the same decibel level reading, but one is much more quiet than the other one because of what you just said. Everything that's involved in there. What are the instruments? Are they bass, baritone, treble? What are the highs or the lows? What's the equalization that was done to this? What is the equalization of the system I'm playing it through? So like you're hitting the nail on the head when you say it's going to be different out the gate. But this is the kind of stuff that makes that really makes a good audio mix completely stand out from a bad one. And you wouldn't know about these things unless you were like having to do a deep dive into this shit, especially with the old standards from broadcast. So now it's kind of a moving target. I try to aim for -18 LUFS, but even that might not be the correct anymore.
You want to know an interesting fact about radio loudness and radio quality and stuff?
Yeah.
We have, for the last couple of years, whenever I create an ad, I have to save it down in what we call a wide orbit wave file. Wide orbit is the name of the system that we use that catalogs all of our commercials in their particular numbers. It's got our music database in there. So if you're going to play bump music in and out, everything like that, right? So everything that gets played other than a live human talking into a microphone goes through this system. So I save it in wide orbit wave, and then we save the backup to that in MP3 format. So for example, if I cut a commercial for Tucker's Auto Body Shop, I'll cut it, I'll save it down in wide orbit wave, which puts it into the system. And then I will also save it as an MP3 so that if the client ever wants to hear it, or we've got kind of like we've got a master record of everything. Because every now and then someone's like, I really love that commercial we aired last year. Can we just air it again as long as it has nothing timestamp on it?
Yeah.
Well, we've been doing this now for so long that we've been playing MP3 quality stuff as part of our broadcast, which does not meet the standards of like when you dig into the system. Will it get on there and will it play? Absolutely. Will the average person notice? No, because they're not listening to it on a hi-fi system that has, multiple, that has the balanced treble and bass, blah, 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 blah.
Still going through that terrestrial broadcast.
Right.
It's going to compress it more.
Even people who are listening to it on like a via digital source, like they're streaming it.
Yep.
It's rare that you have someone who's streaming it in an office that's not coming out of like the speakers that are built into their laptop or something like that, right? Yep. So one day our engineer is like, well, most of the stuff we've got is bad. We're like, what?
When he says, what do you mean bad, though?
Bad is like, it doesn't follow what we have set and established for broadcast standards. So, for example, they recently went through all of our country music, which is a catalog of thousands and thousands of songs.
Right.
And they pulled everything that didn't meet a particular metric with a WAV file.
Got it.
And there, a lot of old stuff got pulled, but a lot of stuff where people ripped it off of a CD using, the worst possible system for it. And I find it fascinating that we give so much work today from ourselves yesterday, right?
Yeah.
I always think about like, this isn't a today problem. This is a future JJ problem. So screw you, future JJ. Here's a prime example. My dogs poop in the backyard. And during the summer, when they poop, I clean it up before I was going to say vacuum, but I meant mow. Before I mow the backyard. And so it's constantly being picked up.
Right.
During the winter months, I do not.
Right. Just let it sit.
Right. Well, and I go out and I shovel. And so I pick it up with the shovel and I throw it over there, which means
over the fence into the neighbor's yard.
Into the neighbor's yard, right by their apple tree. Drop your apples in my yard. I'll drop my dog's apples in your yard. Last year, I remember filling the equivalent of about 15 pounds in 2 separate grocery store bags of soft, mushy dog dung. And it almost made me throw up. Like, it was horrible. And this year, I decided things are going to be different until I was like, you know what, future JJ, you can deal with this problem. So one of the things I do is I take my snowblower in the back and I blow out these big long runs so that like our dogs can get all the way back to the fence line and run around.
Right. Little track for them.
And so this year it got really full of poop, right? Like they had been pooping in a lot and I'm like, you guys deserve some fresh snow. So all I did was about 2 feet over from where the original one was, I snow blowed a new set of tracks and dumped all the snow from there into the other one so that I won't even see where those turds are until the spring is done.
Sweep them under the rug.
I got to tell you, it was like I looked out there just today because it's a nice day out and I thought, God, that's going to suck. April 15th, May 1st, it's going to be a horrible day for me to go out there and clean up.
Can those ever be used for gardening? I don't know how poop works in gardens, but
yes and no. So yes, in the fact of like, it is a material that breaks down, and so you could use it. No, in the fact that like most dogs' diets are not, straight nutrient based. So like a cow goes out and eats grass and grazes like that.
But would it be something that you could put in a composter?
You can, but do you always want to? So for example, like one of my dogs has to take pills for joints. So it's not going to be 100%, biodegradable pure. There's going to be some kind of chemical makeup in there.
Sure.
So yes, you can. Do you want to? The juice, she ain't worth the squeeze.
That's what I figured.
Not at all.
Was that, I mean, it's not going to necessarily destroy it, but it's not also like superpowering it in any particular way.
And like a lot of times dogs will pee on their poop to like mark their territory because
we do that too.
Right. Yeah. But the difference is that it's not in my yard. And there is a lot of, I think it's a lot of nitrogen maybe.
Oh yeah. That makes sense.
In the dog urine.
That makes sense.
That is why you get like the brown spots in your lawn. And so you wouldn't want to be putting that in there either. So
Got it.
Jill and I started composting 2 years ago, and it's gross. It's disgusting. So she does all the composting.
I've been wanting to get a dog lately, which is why I'm not going to. It would be irresponsible for me to do that right now. But like lately, I've just had the urge to have a dog. It's probably because it's getting to be nice outside, and I'm seeing people walk their dogs, and it's just so fun. Yeah.
By the way, this is a good time to tell you that today's episode of JJ Meets World is brought to you by the Baja Men, the group who sings Bow Wow Wow Yippee Yo Yippee Yay, the Who Let the Dogs Out special. If you want to hear the Baja Men, a suggestion would be to find the last music land that's still here, and maybe you can buy a single. The Baja Men, we're still here.
I found out today that Subway no longer calls it Southwest Chipotle. They call it Baja Chipotle.
What?
Yeah. And it tasted a little different.
Is it spelled BAJA, not like BAHA because there's proprietary?
Yeah, and it wasn't a Baja Blast either.
Hey, Mountain Dew's got to cool it.
I don't know. You know what I don't know?
What
the fuck Baja means.
Right. We do know that it's very popular and people like to blast it.
I know what the Bahamas are, but I have no notion if that's actually connected, especially because there's a fucking J in it. The Baja Blast.
Okay, I'm going to show you this picture. I recently went to a gas station and there are 10 spigots that you can get soda from, okay? Not only is the machine itself covered in a Mountain Dew thing, but of the 10, 6 spigots are Mountain Dew based.
Wow. Okay.
Let me name the Mountain Dews that you can get. Mountain Dew Spark, a new blend of raspberry lemonade with a new blend of Mountain Dew with raspberry lemonade. You can also get Mountain Dew Overdrive with a picture of a deer wearing sunglasses. You can get Mountain Dew Code Red. That's been around for a long time.
Yep.
Code Red's new, like if you look at the imagery on it, it includes like a warthog with like big tusks.
Isn't that sort of aimed at gamers too? They do a lot of video game stuff. Yeah.
Diet Mountain Dew. Classic, right?
Yeah. Gross. That's what my mom drinks.
Mountain Dew Goji Citrus Strawberry. You needn't have bothered, Mountain Dew.
That's aggressive.
Right. And then last but not least, good old-fashioned Mountain Dew.
Yep.
Easy Mountain Dew. We've got, and that doesn't even include Baja Blast because I think that's exclusive to Taco Bell.
Have you ever seen the original Mountain Dew like glass bottles with the hillbilly on it?
Yeah, with his little like overalls and hat and like
from straight from Appalachia.
Mountain Dew is interesting because my allegiance is to the Coca-Cola brand.
Right.
We know this.
Yeah.
Right. But Coca-Cola does not have a suitable competitor when it comes to Mountain Dew.
No, not even close.
Mellow Yellow is so far down on the list. Ask yourself this. When was the last time you saw Mellow Yellow on tap anywhere?
Probably with Mikey Sunram because he's the guy I know who loves Mellow Smellow is his thing.
Really?
Yep.
My grandfather, who was a man known for his temper, one time I was at his lake place and I was with my cousins and he came up like he just out of the grocery store and he had a 12-pack of Mellow Yellow and he goes, you guys are drinking too many pops and then just leaving them half full. This is the last case of Yellow Mellow I'm buying. And I remember going like, do not laugh at the fact that your grandfather just said Yellow Mellow while holding a case that clearly says Mellow Yellow because you will be in trouble.
Yeah, you'll be out of that Yellow Mellow.
So like keep it together. So now let's flash forward. I'm going to call it 20 years, maybe even 25 years.
Mm-hmm.
And I run into my cousins while they're in town and now they've got families of their own. And my cousin Andrew says two things when you see him, like when I see him face to face. Number one, you remember that time that Grandpa called a Yellow Mellow? And the other one is, and I told Jill this the day that she met him, I'm like, my cousin Andrew's immediately going to bring up the fact that he convinced me when I was a kid that my dad played for the Minnesota Twins. And then I told everybody. And sure enough, JJ, how's it going? This must be Jill. Jill, have you ever heard about when JJ used to tell everyone his dad played for the Twins?
God, that's amazing.
And I was like, I'm so glad I've evolved.
Do you think we'll ever live in a world where Coke and Pepsi are owned by the same company?
No, I don't.
Why?
The reason being is that I think that the cannibalizing of each other in that would be too much for any company. I don't care how good of a CEO you are. You just can't actually make that happen.
But there are distinct flavors at play. I mean, Pepsi and Coke are not the same product at all. They're very different.
Right. But they are going for the same thing. They're going for your mouth.
Well, they're going for your money. And so Coke gets people's money and Pepsi gets people's money. And so if the same company owned both, there'd be no reason to get rid of either.
No. And I don't think you get rid of either. I think that there's not a person out there who's smart enough to keep the feud going under one roof.
You think the feud is necessary?
Oh, without a doubt.
But they're totally different products.
Let me tell you something. I think one of the reasons I'm better than you is because you like Pepsi. And I know that I'm better because I'm the taste of the perfect generation.
And I am comfortable with you telling yourself whatever self-soothing story you need.
Yep, that's the arrogance of a Pepsi person right there.
Yeah, you cannot say to me that you have better taste than me when you start your day with an open, flat, warm can of Diet Coke.
Because any way you consume it is awesome.
No
matter what, even if you're right before freezing. That's the thing. This ends up under one roof, and I don't think that we quite get what we need.
Listen, I think artificial intelligence is already going to answer this question for us.
Well, this episode is being hosted by ChatGPT.
By the way, that scares the shit out of me.
It does, me too.
Big time. Especially for forget who I was watching about this the other day. But ChatGPT is owned by Microsoft. It's a Microsoft product.
I believe they purchased it for $10 billion.
Yep. And it's now sounds like it's what they're going to be revamping all of their search through because people are using it as a search engine. And so Google was like, well, hey, we also have one coming out.
You open AI, we're going to be good.
Exactly. And so this person I was watching online basically sort of broke down the scenario of, listen, here's what's going to happen now. So many people aren't going to want to type in a search and dig through things that come up. They're going to want to go, hey, Bing, like the same way we talk to Alexa or SIRI right now, because I just don't want her to talk to me right now.
Yeah,
we're in the same room, right?
Because she'll be like, how can I help you, Tucker?
Right, but it's basically going to be like, what's going on in the Ukraine right now? And the AI is going to read every news article that's out there and then come up with a distilled version of it for you, completely bypassing paywalls and all that other stuff, and effectively decimating whole industries right now. I could absolutely get on a soapbox about this, but I think at the core of my concern about AI is that I think humans are not actually paying the requisite emotional attention to what it means. And usually the pushback is, oh, what are you saying? That it's going to gain a personality and turn evil like in Terminator? And I'm actually saying, no, the point is it doesn't need to. Like, maybe it does, but it doesn't need to. It doesn't need to be malevolent. It doesn't need to be sentient to completely flip over the table of our current method of doing things. I think we are so much closer now to needing something like a universal basic income just because of the amount of, I think, devastation that's going to happen to our working force.
Let me give you a metaphor I drew recently for the world of searching through AI. When you go to hunt a deer, right, you have to collect your equipment, you have to get a license, you go out into the wilderness, you wait for a deer to present themselves. You can track it, but you do have to wait for that, creature to come out from the brush, right? And then you have to appropriately shoot it with whatever weapon you're going to use, or throw a knife really hard. I don't know. I'm not a hunter.
Throw a knife really hard.
To get your prize, which is ultimately the deer, right?
Right.
That is what we've been doing now. And technology has made it easier for us. We've got laser sights. We have got trail cams. And so as technology has improved, it has become easier to find information, i.e. kill a deer, right? The ChatGPT search version of it is this. You've got a fenced-in yard, and you've got 5 deer in there that are used to coming up to an area and eating kibble out of it. and there's a gun that you've mounted in front of the kibble. So when they come to eat, you just blow its head off, and there's not actually a hunt involved with it, but you still get the kill out of it ultimately, right?
You get the venison.
But you don't have, there's no skin in the game for you. Right. You didn't do anything to collect that. Humankind is in a very precarious spot right now where we have the most information available to us in the, in the history of our race, but it's not all won by us, right? Like, so it's like Jeff Goldblum's argument in Jurassic Park, which is, you have this thing, but you didn't earn it, right? You've got this product and you're just going to do with it what you want willy-nilly. And then he pounds on the table. By the way, this totally unrelated. The scene in Jurassic Park where they are having lunch together, Chilean sea bass, I believe it is. And there are slide projectors projecting and changing like what's going on behind them, would be the most distracting, blinding lunch you've ever had. Whoever did the production design on that, you did great in every other part of the park, but that is madness. That is utter and complete madness. So I agree with you. Anything else on the chat BT? Okay, can I tell you about this meme?
Yeah.
So every now and then a meme changes my life, right? Where somebody has done something that I think is so wonderful or so thoughtful, and it just gets me. This meme was a gentleman describing the difference between a weather watch and a weather warning with a taco.
Yeah,
Did you see this?
I posted that on Facebook.
Isn't that the most genius thing that you've ever seen in your life?
I like how you're like, Tucker, I want to tell you about this meme that you posted.
But not just you. I saw it maybe 70 times this last week.
It must have gone viral.
Yeah, it was widely shared across the internet. I mean, I saw it on every single one of my social media accounts from all over the place. So yes, you are part of that situation.
I think the best part of that image is the guy pointing at the full taco. Yeah. That's my favorite part, is just the pointing at the taco is probably the best.
For those of you who did not see this meme, and I feel bad for you, search it out. Just search it out like taco warning and you can find it. But it describes a watch as we have all the ingredients to make a taco. So we've got lettuce and taco sauce and ground beef and shells and all this stuff. And then a warning is a taco's already been made. So at any time you can eat this taco, but in the watch scenario, you're going to have all these elements come together. That was so smart.
That was always confusing to me, especially in the case of tornadoes.
Yeah.
Like growing up, I just had the most irrational anxiety about tornadoes. I just thought, oh my God, there's a tornado, whatever. We're going to die. And I would like start crying. I would get so worked up about it. And more often than not, it was a watch versus a warning. Or wait, warning is there is a taco?
Yes.
Yeah,
warning
Watches,
is taco.
We have the ingredients.
Watch is ingredients.
I need to make tacos again. It's been a while since I made them at home, because I think homemade tacos are like the best thing to eat over like 3 days. Where like you make a batch, then you're like, I'm still hungry the next day for it. And the next day you're like, I could still go for homemade tacos in more time.
Taco meat is a very versatile meat. Yeah. You could put it on top of nachos. You could put it back in the shell. Yep. You can put it in a soft shell. Today I had tacos for lunch.
Nice.
And I got to tell you, I'm very disappointed in the taco industry of Fargo, Moorhead, West Fargo.
Where'd you go?
That's the goddamn question, isn't it? I refuse to even drive up to Taco John's anymore, because they are clearly afflicted by what's going on in the workforce shortage. And by the way, do you remember during the pandemic when we all fell for this? There's a coin shortage. So sorry, everything had to get rounded up to $1. We don't have any change. So even if you pay for it and we owe you 35 cents, we don't have it.
Was that a big conspiracy?
I don't think it's a conspiracy, but I think that it's potential that it happened for a little bit. But then businesses were just like, listen, we're making extra cash out of this. And then we're getting people to use their credit card versus having cash.
Right.
And cash on hand, even though you pay for a credit card transaction, cash on hand is always more risky because of employee theft, right? And people skimming off the top, getting that cream. So I think that at one point we all fell for this idea that the workforce shortage is so bad, there's no way we'll ever keep these places, open. I understand where you're coming from, that it was difficult to find employees. And I bet it was really a hard pill to swallow to start people at like $19 an hour to be able to get them to do something like build a taco and run your company.
Right.
But I am to believe that all of the Taco Johns in our vicinity are owned by one company. Yet they can't manage to be open on a Saturday or Sunday. How about this? You just tell us, listen, we're closing down all of them except for our Moorhead location. So you will go into Minnesota, and that will be the location that's open on Saturdays and Sundays, and then we're going to keep it closed on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. But employees from all of these will come to this one location, and that's the one that they will run because we can't have just one at each person. I've been burned so many times by pulling, and then they print out a piece of paper. They haven't even bothered to laminate it yet, and they're closed all the time. You're wasting paper at this point. Get yourself a nice sign that says, sorry, bummer, we won't be open until Monday, ole, and then be done with it. The same thing goes for Taco Bell locations. They seem to be making up their hours whenever they want. Taco Bell used to be the standard. You knew it was going to be open at 10 a.m. and it didn't close until 3 a.m. So if you were totally drunk, you could still get yourself some sweet tacos. If your Doyle's cab representative will drive through the drive-thru for you for an extra 10 spot. So to answer your question, Tucker, the only taco, like quick taco location in the Fargo-Moorhead area that is open no matter what, according to the hours that they have posted, is the taco shop.
Yep.
So I went to the taco shop, got an enchilada plate, 3 hard shell tacos, a cheese tostada, and deluxe nachos. And Jill and I were very satisfied. Very satisfied.
You know, go ahead.
Oh, and I will also say this. We spent $35 while we were there, okay? And we were there between 12:30 and like 1 o'clock, somewhere in that era. So in the time we were there were 3 cars in front of us and there were 3 cars behind us. And so if the average amount of money spent was, let's say, $25 between all of those cars, they made enough money to be open for that hour, paying all of their employees $20 plus per hour and still taking home a very tidy sum. So if you run a restaurant, you're losing money by not being open and figuring out how to make that work. So pay those people more so that they can come in and fill their grease holes so you can grease your palm.
Growing up, both of my stepsisters worked at taco shop on University at one time or another. So
the North one, I assume.
The North one, yeah. So we'd go there.
Funny, they're both on University.
Both on University. Actually, no longer though. I think didn't the North one close down?
I believe the North one did close down.
Yeah.
I unconfirmed.
I believe it did. I think it did. Don't know for certain, but let's just say it did.
Or they were like, "Listen, we can't staff both of these. We'll keep one open."
Yeah, that was though where I learned that I like to put not just hot sauce but mayo in my tacos.
Yeah.
And then also
gross to me, but yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, but you drink Diet Coke, so whatever.
Yeah, but I'm smarter. I don't need the mother sauce inside of my taco.
I know you've got issues with your mother sauce, JJ, but if one day you'll go to therapy and and you'll stop taking it out on Jill, But I can't. It must have been Leah. It might have been Shelly, but I think it was Leah. Taught my sister and I, because we'd get the Fritas as well, the big fries. They're delicious.
Yeah, gorgeous.
Taught us to put little alternating drops of taco sauce and mayo along the length of like each individual Frita.
Oh.
Yeah, and then eat it that way. And we loved it. We were like, this is the most delicious thing ever. Still to this day, if I ever get Fritas, I'm like, I do at least one where I alternate the drops on it because it's just so pleasureful.
You know what's funny is that was just a simpler time, right?
Yeah.
Where you could take the time to take both bottles and go lefty, righty, lefty, righty, lefty, righty, munch, munch, munch.
Oh, I would do like the offbeats first and then...
fill it in?
Yeah, and then fill it in after.
Because you only wanted to use your right hand for squirts?
It was... Well, I am right-handed, and so it just felt like more control, but also sometimes you have to stabilize the fry, depending on how the fry is built.
Sure.
Like if you're
not laying them out like in a...
I'm laying it out,
grid.
but even with just putting some liquid on it, it can shift it and knock it over.
Let me tell you a real dream of mine. I've always wanted to eat something off of a conveyor belt. Like where I open my... then it just falls in, like the conveyor belt ends. And so like it's a bunch of pudding or fries, but I just open my mouth and go, and let the machine feed me.
That makes me think of, so you like donuts, huh? Have all the donuts you want. More.
It's one of the best Simpsons moments. He's like, I can't believe it. He's eaten the entire world's supply of donuts.
It's that and 64 slices of American cheese. 63.
Yeah.
62.
And he's got like he looks so sickly when he's done eating all of that cheese.
Homer, have you been up all night eating cheese? I think I'm blind.
And then Mr. Burns and Smithers fall from the ceiling. Right? It's a great episode. I wanted to also ask a specific question in this because recently I was nostalgic for something and I wanted to know if you had an opinion on it, which is, have you owned a favorite pair of sunglasses in your life? Actually, there's one that I associate with you.
The answer is no, because I usually buy $10 pairs that I end up losing and then buying another $10 pair. I mean, if you're saying style, or are you saying actual pair of sunglasses?
An actual pair of sunglasses, like a specific. Did you have pair. See, here's the thing. I bought expensive pairs and I bought cheap pairs. I can't seem to lose the cheap pairs, but I will lose an expensive pair, no sweat.
I lose expensive pairs within about a month of buying, or cheap ones within about a month of buying them.
There was a summer where you had a good pair of aviators.
Well, that's usually
mirrored aviators that I really like.
That's usually what I go for. Aviators. I just like them.
Yeah.
And I just I was just thinking about sunglasses this morning because I don't have any right now. And now we're getting
bright outside.
Getting to the weather where it would be nice to have some shades. And now I'm actually like wearing my contacts again more than my regular glasses. I want sunglasses to, shade me from the sun and also make me feel confident. Like I think that's the thing with sunglasses is that it's not just that you have that little bit of extra protection in your eyes, which is great for like reducing migraines and just how bright it is outside. But also it's kind of like a comfort blanket. It can be a confidence booster, just like putting on a tie that you like or a pair of shoes that you like. Sunglasses are a great accessory. Mm-hmm. And the only style I really ever seem to want are usually really reflective aviators or black aviators or blue ones. I sometimes I'll go for like a nice, like a royal blue one, and then I'll lose it. I know I'm going to lose it in 3 weeks anyways.
I love that. So my favorite pair of sunglasses I've ever owned. I think that my look is the Wayfarer, like Ray-Ban type of look. So like the Blues Brothers type look of that. Right. That is a constant for me in my life. But Oakley, back in the day, like when I was in high school, used to make one called Frog Skins, and they kind of were frog eye shaped, a little like not circles, but not quite ovals. And they fit in between where your eyebrow ends and like your cheekbone begins.
Oh,
so
sure.
like it was real tiny in there.
Right.
And then I remember they wrapped around and they went not only a year, but like almost touched in the back. I thought those were the coolest sunglasses ever. And I wore them religiously for maybe 2 years. And I am positive I left them at a friend's house and his little brother stole them. I am positive of it.
Remember that era we went through when dudes really loved wearing sunglasses where the band would actually go up above the head and over to the
unfortunately.
back? And they're like, listen, I'm wacky. And it's like, no, you're not. You're a piece of shit because you think that's nice and it's wrong. You're wrong. That's like drinking Diet Coke.
Yeah,
it's
right.
like watching Captain Ron.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's the pretentiousness.
It's like
of people like just being down on someone who likes something that they like because they like it.
It's like basing your sermon off of an Anthony Hopkins movie.
Yeah. Last night I was emceeing the Sweetheart Ball for the Red.
Oh, you were emceeing it? See, I
MC.
thought that was you winning Valentine's Day.
Oh,
that's what I thought.
No.
Oh, shit.
That was me. Trust me, I won Valentine's Day. That was part of my job involves me emceeing the Sweetheart Ball for the Ronald McDonald House Charities of the Red River Valley. I've done it now for the 4 years. Amy, my radio partner, has done it for almost a decade now. And it's a fantastic event, and it was packed to the gills yesterday. It was like 650 people. And what's nice is they give you a script, but I can kind of go off the script and be a little of goofy. So, for example, this took place at the Delta by Marriott or as most of you probably described in getting here, the old Ramada. And I remember telling people like that was my opening joke. And there's one person who did not look like she really thought that was that funny.
She's like, too soon.
Yeah. And it was a wonderful event. I had a lot of fun. And one of the videos involved a family who lost their child at a very young age. And for those of you who don't know, the Ronald McDonald House in anywhere in the nation is close to hospitals, and they give free room and board to families whose children are in the hospital. So, for example, if you live many miles away, you can stay at a Ronald McDonald House for free. Be able to utilize that, so you don't have to have a hotel stay. And some people stay there for like 6 months at a time.
Oh yeah, I mean, when Dane was born, Brianna and Nick lived out of the Ronald McDonald House right next door, and then I stayed there with them when we were. They're an amazing organization.
It truly is, and you would think that McDonald's would want all of this glory from it because it's an organization that started through them clearly. But they don't. They're very humble about it. And, it's a good organization because they've pumped a lot of money into this thing to make houses available all over the country. And they have chosen Coke products as the thing that they're going to put inside of their businesses.
So they're not that great.
They're great. They're great.
I'm just remembering this now. In North Fargo, we used to have a Ronald McDonald House.
I believe there still is.
Is it still there?
I believe there's 3. That was the original Ronald McDonald House.
In Fargo?
In Fargo. And then they opened, that was on Broadway. It was 1, 2, 3, 4 Broadway.
Okay.
And then there's one in South Fargo right next to like where my house is, because and the one that was on Broadway was adjacent to the Broadway hospital that was up there. And then the one that was near me was close to the hospital that was there. Now their new facility that I think can house like 25 families a night is over by the new giant hospital in West Fargo.
I just remember the one in North Fargo having like a hamburger place.
Yeah.
Like you could actually crawl up into it. And as a kid seeing it, and not knowing that wasn't a McDonald's.
You just thought it was a cool kid's house.
I thought it was a McDonald's. I was like, oh, there's a McDonald's here in this house. And I had to be told, no, that's the Ronald McDonald House. And I was like, exactly. It's the McDonald's house. There's one in this house.
That's where Ronald lives.
Hold on. It's the McDonald's house. It's like, well, like our family, the McDonald's? It's like, no. No, you're fucking stupid, kid.
Mm-hmm. They're like, keep drinking Pepsi.
Yeah.
So
one time you would have fucking loved this. If you had a time machine just to go see a moment in time, you would want the coordinates to this one so you could just laugh at me. Because I was in junior high school riding my bicycle back from the stop and go where I'd bought a 24-pack of Pepsi. And I'm trying to like balance it and I went over the curb too fast and it fell and dropped and half of the cans exploded. And a guy pulled over and was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, "Yes," as I picked up and it sprayed Pepsi all over me.
Oh.
You would have loved it. And the other half, like I just wanted to put them in my little mini fridge.
Yeah, a little mini fridge.
I had a mini fridge and that made me feel like I was an adult.
Also, isn't it messed up that McDonald's play places for a long time had a giant Mayor McCheese, which was the mayor of McDonald's land, and you'd crawl into his slender torso and you'd come out with where his head is, but his head is it's a burger, and so the bun was on top and then there's another bun on the bottom, and you would be like a little prisoner in there. And who thought up that? Like, let's crawl inside the burger.
I have not followed it in a long time. Do they still have like commercials with an actor playing Ronald McDonald ever anymore?
I believe they do.
They do still. Okay. Yeah. I wasn't sure if they still did or not.
Being a professional Ronald McDonald, I met one once.
Right.
And it was a huge deal. And there were like 15 across the country for all these different personal appearances. And it was vague enough that it didn't, right? Like if I'm at Detroit Lakes Water Carnival seeing Ronald McDonald on stage, I'm not smart enough to be like, that's not the exact cadence of the Ronald McDonald I'm used to.
One came to Horace Mann Elementary, I think, when I was in the 5th grade, and we were all excited. And then when he came out, I remember being like, something's not totally right here. This isn't exactly what he's like in the commercials. And he kept saying, I'm going to do a magic trick for you guys pretty soon. And I'm going to prove to you that magic is real. I can actually prove to you that magic is real. And we were like, let's see it. Like, I want to see that magic is real. And so this fucking Ronald McDonald is talking And I'm like, this, come on.
Come on.
Let's see
fella.
this. Let's see your tricks. I want to know that magic is
Did
real.
he ask you, do you believe in magic
Yes,
first?
he did. And then at one point, he kind of reaches over and it looks like he maybe touches something. And then you hear, like this little sounds almost like a vacuum cleaner in reverse. And then he pulls out of nowhere this like little ping pong ball, this little light ping pong ball. And then he leans over and like you can see he's trying to struggle to find the right spot. And then he lets it go and it's levitating on top of the air that's blowing it into the sky. Or, and it's the first time I'd ever heard a slow clap from like 500 disappointed elementary school kids who was like, listen, we've seen magic before. That ain't it.
Did you bring any fries?
I have so many amazing memories at Horseman from them bringing all of us into the gymnasium for a presentation of some kind and it just not going well.
Let me tell you about my favorite 2 presentations. Number 1, first of all, Steve Stark as Teddy Roosevelt was the best. Like, and I must have seen that.
Since I have to
I must have seen that like 6 or 7 times, like because they constantly brought Steve Stark in. And I vividly remember a story he told because he starts off as just Steve Stark and he slowly but surely puts on all of these different like clothing until all of a sudden he's in full Teddy regalia. And he tells a story about how Teddy's kids, one of them was sick and during Teddy Roosevelt's time was the first time they had an elevator in the White House and the kids snuck out to the stables and brought a horse up the elevator to visit like one of the sick kids, sick Roosevelt children. And apparently for a long time, there was like a hoof mark in the like of the elevator that people saw. And so that became like a big story. Number 2 was this woman, and I can't remember her name, but she would show up and there'd be a giant M&M, like an inflatable M&M costume that someone was in. So she must have been sponsored by the M&M Mars company, but she could spin like 30 basketballs on her body at one time, right? And you'd have to go up and help like spin. So it's on her nose, it's on this. And then I remember they brought me up once and she's like, JJ, you gotta be so still. And I'm like, okay. And they put one on my nose and it was spinning. And I'm like, this is the most sports I've ever done. And then her other claim to fame was she had one of Shaquille O'Neal's sneakers. Not both, but one.
Just one of them.
And she'd pass it around. Kids would be like, that's the biggest fucking shoe I've ever seen.
He forgot it outside of a Pizza Hut.
I robbed Shaquille O'Neal one day. He was posing for the Shaq Fu Sega Genesis cartridge artwork.
And just that let the be a reminder, kids, to follow your dreams, say no to drugs.
Yeah. I believe that it was an anti-drug thing, right?
Probably was.
Like, you can do anything that you want, but don't do the smack.
We had like a former Miss North Dakota come and speak to us once about, I think it was the Just Say No, that program at the time. And
what drugs have you done?
Right. And at my elementary school was kindergarten through 6th grade, and each grade had at least 2 classes. So it was a ton of kids in the carpeted gym at Horseman Elementary School. And Beavis and Butthead was sort of new at the time and was the cultural zeitgeist that, we weren't supposed to watch them or The Simpsons or Ren and Stimpy, right? Like those are the things you weren't supposed to be watching at all. And I just remember this distinctly, the former Miss America or Miss North Dakota or whatever state she was, would have been Miss North Dakota. I can't imagine Miss Idaho would have come to Fargo and be like, well, why are we hearing from her? Can't we? But then, of course, Bergham's always hiring out of state people.
I mean, it wasn't Miss America, was it?
No, I don't believe so. But here's the thing that stood out to me was that she was like, and then there are these guys like Beavis and Butthead. Like, they're just idiots. You don't want to be like them, do you? And she asked that question, and 600 kids said yes, because we knew she wanted us to say no. Those sort of things were happening. You guys didn't have Battle of the Books, did you? We had Battle of the Books.
No.
That might have just been a Horseman thing as well. It was. It also would take place at like the whole school in the gymnasium, and it was between. It was basically like a tournament style trivia game about this list of reading that the 5th and 6th graders had to do. So the 5th and 6th graders would have the same reading list, and then they would be broken up into teams of 4 by their teachers. And then those teams of 4 in their grade would compete against each other, tournament style. And then the winning 5th grade team and the winning 6th grade team would compete against each other in front of the entire school. And oh yeah, and it was an annual thing. So from kindergarten on, every year I'd watch Battle of the Books, and it gets so stoked to go for it. And I never made it to the team that got to play, but the 5th graders always won. It's like, for some reason, it was just how it worked at our school, where the 5th graders would always pull out the win. 6th graders would never fucking win. And then I remember when it was our turn to lose, and like in my class, like complaining about it, and me trying to be like, come on, guys, we won last year. We'd have to win. They're like, shut the fuck up, Tucker. We lost Battle of the Books. Lost Battle of the Books, and it wasn't because of me.
Oh, that's good.
Luckily.
My sister had DARE, Drug Abuse Resistance
I had
Education.
that as well. You didn't have it?
No, I had DARE.
Okay.
But I'm saying my sister was in DARE in 5th grade, right?
Yep.
And you had to write an essay about drugs. And she didn't want to do it. And so I wrote the essay for her. And I'm 2 years older than she is. And on a Tuesday, they're like, Chrissy, your essay has been chosen over every other kid's essay in Fargo Public Schools to be read at the our statewide DARE assembly.
Oh, so good.
So the first time that Chrissy actually reads it is in front of a giant crowd of people. And Chrissy to this day will still quote that, how I put at the very end, it's like, and it won't be until, or like, it was then and only then will we have a drug-free America. And that was one of the many times that my sister utilized my skill and regretted it immediately.
I won in my class my like essay, but I just had to read mine in front of our graduation class, because ours was in 6th grade. We didn't do 5th grade. I think they moved it back. We were the first grade to get it moved or something like that. The other big disappointment, though, for me was that I grew up seeing the older kids with the DARE shirt, the black T-shirt with the red DARE letters and the white letters underneath it. And I thought
it looked badass.
It looked awesome. And I was always looking forward to getting my DARE shirt. My year of DARE was the first year they decided to change the design. They changed them to white T-shirts with some weird like 90s purple grid work graphic in the background, and then the red DARE on top of it. And the explanation was that the other ones were gang colors.
What?
That's what I had heard. I couldn't tell you if that was the actual reason they did it or not. I was so fucking upset. I thought this is garbage. This is garbage.
I had a DARE shirt, and then I got a GREAT shirt. Was gang resistance, education, and training.
See, I got skipped on GREAT. Our grade did not have to go through GREAT.
Oh, it's because they had no idea what they were talking about. Because the problems of like a Detroit inner city school have no bearing on a Fargo, North Dakota education. But I remember getting a GREAT shirt, and the GREAT shirt was similar to the DARE shirt, but much more watered down, and had a green logo. And I remember thinking to myself, I was like, I really love that DARE shirt. I really just love that DARE shirt. Because you could cut the sleeves off of the DARE shirt, and you could be instantly intimidating.
What year did Chrissy graduate?
2004.
Okay, so she was a year after me. So you know what I bet what happened was it would have originally been 6th grade, and then 6th grade for DARE and 7th grade for GREAT. But then the year I was in 7th grade, they must have shifted it down so that she... Oh, no, that wouldn't make sense.
So if for us on the south side, you went to elementary school up to 5th grade, and then 6th and 7th grade was at Discovery. And then after that, you went to 8th and 9th. No, 6th and 7th grade, was at Agassiz. And then you went to 8th and 9th grade. So like for me, I only had 3 years at the high school. And so I think that deals with when they did it, because I know for sure we did DARE when I was in 5th grade. And then we did GREAT when I was in 6th grade, because we had to do it we had to do GREAT, not it. Do GREAT. I
just remember
in a science room.
The halls of Agassiz being anxiety inducing.
They are. They still are.
They were just claustrophobic and dark and old.
And they always smelled like condiments.
Did they?
Yeah.
I mean, I would have to go there from like every once in a while for some event or whatever. I never had to take class there. But I think that was the first place I saw all the kids being forced to wear lanyards. And we weren't being forced to wear lanyards at all
I remember having to wear a lanyard.
I will
tell you this. I remember one day from both of those years. It was such a traumatic time for me being bullied that I remember one day, and it was the worst of the worst for bullying, where actually it involves dare. Oh, this is really nice. It's 360. So I am sitting and having lunch with my 3 friends, which are just 2 guys I happen to know and 1 foreign exchange student who hung out with us all the time. And we're eating lunch, and all of a sudden I feel this wetness, like a wet hit on the back of my shirt. And I was like, what? And so I put my hand around the back, but I didn't feel anything. And then the kid who's sitting behind me goes, hey, I mean, does this hurt? Does it hurt? And he like slapped me on like the shoulder. I'm like, no. And so then I said, hey, is there something on my shirt? And I turned to the foreign exchange student, and he goes, yes, much mayonnaise.
Oh.
So they had made a big slurry of mayonnaise and mustard and ketchup, and they flicked it, and it hit my back. And so when I finally touched it, it must have covered 2/3 of like between my shoulder blades and like down my spine. And so I just got up and I walked straight to the office, and I was like, I need to go home.
Yeah.
And they're like, why? And I turned around and I said, this was done to me. So then one of the principals comes out and he goes, oh my gosh, hold on. They couldn't get a hold of my mom. So he gave me a dare shirt, like something that they had in like this, but it was a medium. And at the time I was definitely large, like pretty much extra large. So this thing is, my tummy is now like getting exposed from this thing. And he goes, well, why don't you go back to class? And when we get a hold of your mom, we'll deal with it. And I was like, and I had enough. And I'm like, no. And I burst into tears. And to me, it was one of those moments where it's like, you need to be the adult now.
Yeah.
So he's like, okay, clearly this was going on. He goes, do you know who did it? And I said, I don't know who threw this at me, but I know that these are the 5 people who are sitting at that table. And so he pulls all 5 of them in, and he says, I want to know who did this. And he pulls up my shirt that I was wearing. Pretty sure it was a Garfield shirt.
Were you in the room as this was happening?
Yeah. And so, which is horrible, right?
Right.
And he goes, and he's talking about how disrespectful this is, and I can't believe you do this, and what a waste of food. And like, he's giving the wrong speech here. And he goes, I want to know which one of you guys did it. Which one of you thought was funny? And one of the kids is like, I did it. I'm sorry. Like this. And he goes, how'd you like it if I threw food on you, huh? How'd you like it if I did that? And he goes, I wouldn't care. And so he took the shirt and he rubbed it all over this kid's shirt. And I remember going like, oh my God, this is going to be on the news. Right? And so this kid was like, oh, what are you doing? He's like, now go put your gym shirt on. And so he made him go. And then I was like, why didn't I put my gym shirt on? Other than the fact of like, do I want to wear my gym shirt around? Like, I'm like, I was just so comfortable. I didn't want to take it off after sweating in it. When they finally got a hold of my mom, this is interesting too. We all know how neglected I was as a child, right? So they finally get a hold of my mom, who had been at a pinochle tournament all day and was shit-faced by like 2:00 in the afternoon. And I could tell that the secretary at the school, from talking to my mom on the phone, knew that she was drunk. And she said, no, we'll be fine. And so she's like, how about this? Would you like to watch television? And she put me in the copy room with a TV, and I watched Wishbone for the rest of the day.
Aww.
And she brought me like a really nice like snack, and I remember she gave me a pop. I think it was a Surge at the time, and like, I don't remember what that woman's name is, but if I saw her face to face, I would tell her right now, like, you are the angel in disguise. You are the only adult that day who helped me in this situation. Like, this is another thing that happened. So because I just got up and left, I don't know, when you went to lunch, there at Agassiz, there was a big long bay of like areas where you'd put your backpack.
Oh, no.
Like, so you didn't wear your backpack to the table. You'd put your backpack and then you'd grab it as you left the cafeteria.
Okay, so we're talking junior high school, middle school.
High, yeah.
Got it, not elementary school. No, you would just put it in your locker. Or bring it with you.
So we put in the cubbies, right? These big cubbies, and then you collect it after lunch so that you wouldn't have a bunch of bags and areas where people are spilling and stuff like that.
Yep. We did not follow that protocol.
After they put the Dare shirt on me, they were like, go down and get your bag. So I went down there and my bag was gone.
Oh.
And so I came back and I'm like, well, my bag's gone. And they're like, well, nothing's been turned into lost and found. So then I was thinking like someone stole my backpack. Well, one of the janitors had collected the backpack.
Right.
And his thought
That would
was
have been my thought.
maybe this kid got sick and so he had to leave. And so there was no rush for him to get it up to lost and found. And so when he finally did bring it to lost and found, she was also the one who like opened up the backpack and it said, you know, like property of JJ Gordon and then my phone number in there. And so she's like, oh, and you know, one of the janitors brought your backpack. I was like, thank you. And like she called like all of my teachers for the rest of the day and like got my assignments and so brought them all down here and like essentially like said, this is an excused absence for what's going on. Ugh, saint of a woman.
Yeah, it sounds like she handled it really, really well.
That's the only day I remember for 2 years.
Oh, sure.
Only day of school I remember for 2 years.
That was all your Agassi years?
Yeah,
Everything
those
else
are horrible years.
got packaged into the shame box and put away.
Yeah. In fact, recently I saw some kids at Fargo North being rude and like actively excluding another kid. And so I went up and I'm like, I want you to go over there right now and incorporate that person in the group. And they're like, no. And I said, you have no idea what a gift you have right now to have this friend group. I said, you don't have to be best friends with this kid. But you know what? We're part of like a team here in this club. You're going to end up performing with them at some point. Yeah. Go and get to know them a little bit.
Good chance they're going to be your boss someday too.
Right. Bingo. Just ran into a kid who made my life, like when I played intramural basketball, a living hell. And he tried to be all buddy with me. And I'm like, excuse me, I'm kind of a big deal here. I gotta go take care of some stuff. That's going to wrap it up for today's show. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to help us continue to produce new episodes each week, visit jjmeetsworld.com, where you can donate to our Patreon, pick up some swag at the merch shop, or follow our link to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. You can also follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, all the sites the cool kids are using these days. JJ Meets World is produced every week by Tucker Lucas. You can find out more about Tucker's work by visiting moonbasemaria.com. If you want to get in touch with your host with the most, check out linebenders.com, where you can find direct contact info for JJ or booking information. If I met that kid today, well, I would squirt him with mustard.